Should you get an EasyJet Plus membership? It's a way of potentially saving hundreds of pounds, and it also greatly enhances your flying experience with EasyJet, but it won't be for everyone. Today I'm going to cover exactly what benefits you get with the membership and give you an idea of how many trips you would need to take with EasyJet per year for it to be worth it for you. And if you stick around to the end, I'll show you how you can save a bit of money off that annual cost. But let's get into the basics of what this membership actually offers you. So the headline fee is £249 a year, and that is a cost per person. Now that may sound like a lot, but there are actually a lot of benefits that you get for that fee. Let's start with the key benefits that you get before you get on board. For starters, there's luggage. So if you want to bring on a large carry-on, with EasyJet there is usually a cost for this. Now it does vary from flight to flight. Sometimes it can be as low as £20, sometimes it can be as much as £50, so there is a bit of a range. But if you do often carry on a large carry-on bag, you get this included with EasyJet Plus. So every flight you take, you'll not need to pay that extra fee. If instead you're checking in a bag, then you actually get access to priority bag drop. What this means is when you're dropping off your bag, you don't need to go to the normal long queue. And I've seen some bad queues recently. Obviously it varies from airport to airport and it changes different times of day, but I've seen some where the queue's just been snaking back and forth for ages. Last time we were over in Belfast International, the queue looked absolutely massive. It would have easily taken half an hour to get down there, but the queue for the priority bag drop had no one in it. You'd have just walked straight through, dropped off your bag and be done. So with that one, it's not really necessarily something I put a monetary value on, but it could be a huge time saving. And if you do travel with EasyJet a lot, that time can really add up and be worth something to you. And on a similar note to that, once you've dropped off your bag, you then get to go through fast track security. Now, this isn't available at every single airport that EasyJet operates out of, but it will be available at most, especially in the UK. And again, I wouldn't personally put a cash value to that because it's something I would never actually pay for. I know a lot of airports do offer fast track security for a fee. I don't think I could ever bring myself to pay that, but having it included is a real value added benefit, and it is something that can save a lot of time. Once you've got through security, it'll then be time to get on the plane, and you'll be able to get on the plane first thanks to speedy boarding. So speedy boarding is included with every flight you take if you have EasyJet Plus. And there's kind of two key benefits to having this. The first is it can sometimes be a bit of a fight to get space in the overhead bins on these flights, so getting on board first is a genuine advantage. It means you're not needing to worry about having to find somewhere to put your bag or having to put it too far back. The second benefit is what happens in the boarding area. So I'm sure if you've flown EasyJet, you've had one of two experiences when you've gone to the gate. Either you've had your documents checked and you've then had to sit in a really crowded room for ages. It can sometimes be like 20 minutes just sat there waiting to board. The other thing that can happen is they'll make you stand up in a queue after you've already shown your documents. You'll just be stood up in a crowded area, again, waiting to get on board. If you do have speedy boarding, this will typically be then in a separate area. So you might have a separate seating area with much less people, less crowded. Or if you do need to stand up, you'll be stood up for a lot less time as you'll be the first on board. And once you do get on board, this is where for me the biggest benefit comes in, and that is free seat selection. Every booking you make, if you have EasyJet Plus, you get free seat selection, and that's for any seat on board. So this means you can get the front row and the exit row, or any seat that you prefer for no additional cost. Similar to the larger carry-ons, this can vary in price, and it does tend to be in that roughly £25 to £50 range, and that's per flight. So if you are making one return trip and you usually pay for the overhead bags and you pay for the seat selection, potentially you could be saving yourself as much as £200 on a booking. Now, it's probably unlikely it's ever going to be quite that much, but I think we can conservatively assume that just on those two benefits alone, you're saving about £50 per flight. So you'd only need about 5 flights if those benefits are worth something to you to make that money back. And having these seats is a genuine, really good benefit. EasyJet seats are not really the most comfortable. There's not a huge amount of room, and particularly leg room and knee room can be quite short. So being able to get that front row or the exit row makes the flight so much more comfortable. And I don't tend to do long EasyJet flights. Most of the flights I do with EasyJet are not more than half an hour. But because I do fly with them fairly regularly, just having that bit of extra comfort for each of those half hours just makes the flight so much more comfortable. Now, the seats aren't perfect. Actually, when I sat in the front row recently in seat 1A, because there was no bulkhead there, no barrier, people were boarding directly in front of me, and I actually had to tuck my legs back. Otherwise, I would have been in their way. And it was only a half-hour flight, so the boarding process took almost as long as the flight itself. So it meant I was quite uncomfortable for that whole boarding process. So maybe not the best seat to be in on some of their planes. I definitely think the exit row has a bit more comfort, generally speaking, and it tends to be less booked as well. I think the front row just has a bit more people going for it, a bit more demand, primarily obviously because everyone wants to get on board off the plane first, and that is a genuine advantage actually, particularly if you know you're going into a crowded airport. Being able to just get off the plane straight away can make a huge difference in the amount of time it takes to get through the airport. But that's not all the benefits that you get. There are a few additional ones. Now, these extra ones, for me personally, I don't really get the value from them, but they might be worth something to you. So I'm going to go through all of them and you can see what you think. So the first one is that you get a 10% discount on onboard purchases. Again, the reason why this isn't worth it to me is I tend to do shorter flights, and I've usually eaten at the airport. Particularly, I do have a priority pass, so I get access to the lounge anyway, so I'll probably have already eaten a load of food then. So I don't tend to order food on board, but if you do a lot of longer journeys with EasyJet, or if you know you're going to order a meal or a few drinks, then the savings from that could add up. I doubt it's ever going to be substantial. It is only a 10% discount, but it might be worth something to you. So the next one is a price promise. An EasyJet guarantee that if you find the same flight for cheaper at a later date, they'll give you a voucher for the difference in that fare. I do get some benefit from this because it gives a bit of peace of mind. If I know I'm going to be going somewhere, I never have to wonder, should I wait and hold out for a better fare? If I know I'm going to be going on a certain date, I can just get that booked. And I know that if I keep an eye on it, if it does come down later, I can at least get that money back in the form of a voucher. There are some exclusions to this, and I think in the small print it does actually say that this doesn't apply to sale fares. And realistically, the flight is probably just going to go up in price as you get closer to the journey anyway. Unless there's a sale. So I don't know in reality how often we'll actually get anything from it. So far, we've not made any gains from it, but maybe some people will. It's probably more of a marketing thing to make it sound good, where it's something that in reality just probably wouldn't happen. Then another benefit to mention is that you can actually change to an earlier flight for free if it's available. So if you're originally scheduled for an evening flight, but for whatever reason you're able to make that earlier one, if there are seats available on that flight, you can move to that one for free. So again, I can't think of many scenarios where I'd ever be in that position, so I don't really put much value on that benefit. But to some people, especially business travellers maybe, who want to book the later flight just to give themselves that window, who maybe find themselves at the airport early, potentially that could be worth using. So before I get into how you can bring down that £249 a year cost, let's talk more generally about who this is worth it for. If you do fly EasyJet regularly, then to me it's a no-brainer. Even if you don't tend to use a lot of these benefits as standard, or if they're not things that you pay for, I do think having them just makes such a big improvement to the flight experience. The amount of time that you can save and the extra perks and the extra comfort you get, I think is worth that £250 a year if you do fly with them regularly. I think as well, if you don't tend to fly them regularly, but you know you're at an EasyJet hub airport, so you might fly them quite often, it may be worth investing in, because if there's not much price difference sometimes between the EasyJet fare and let's say another low-cost carrier like Ryanair, having that membership just helps bring down that cost, so you might choose to go with them. Obviously, that's why they offer the membership, is to encourage people to do that. But there is general benefit to you if it means you get all these extra features. But I think ultimately it does just boil down to how many times you fly with EasyJet. So looking before at some of the benefits I mentioned, the main ones that have a clear cost advantage would be the baggage, the extra carry-on baggage that is, and also the free seat selection. Let's assume they're at the lower end of what they tend to be and call them £25 each. It's worth reminding ourselves that that is £25 per flight. So if you're doing a return journey, you need to pay those fees in both directions. So if it's £25 for each benefit, we're getting both of them. That's £50 per flight. So on a return journey, that is going to cost you £100. That means that in just 2.5 return journeys, you've made back your fee. So if you know for a fact that these are benefits you would go for, and you know that you're going to do at least 3 return journeys with EasyJet this year, it's probably a bit of a no-brainer to go for this. If you know that you're going to do way more than that, it's definitely something you should be looking at. But if none of the benefits I've mentioned there are something that appeal to you, they're nothing you would ever really pay for, you don't see the value in them, or if you just don't fly EasyJet that often, it's not going to be worthwhile. But for those of you who do want this membership, let's talk about how you can actually save some money on it. So as I said at the start, this £249, that is the cost per person. Unfortunately, all the benefits apply just to you. This is different to a lot of airline status benefits. So for example, with my BA status, I can get free seat selection for me and everyone in my party. It's not the same with EasyJet Plus, you do need to pay for it separately. But if you do always travel with your partner or with the same person, then you can save money on that second membership. EasyJet offers something called a partner card, which is only £215 a year, so £34 less than the standard card. The catch with this is that only the primary card holder is the person that can travel on their own and get the benefits. If you have a partner card, you'll only get the benefits if you're travelling with that other person. This actually works out for me and my partner Kelly. She will sometimes be taking EasyJet flights on her own, but we do often travel together, and I'll only ever really take EasyJet when I'm flying with her. So it made perfect sense for her to have the main card and for me to have the cheaper partner card. There is also a child card as well, so this is £155, so a good bit cheaper. So if you are always travelling with your child, you can at least get the benefits for them for less too. The other way we saved money was with an online discount code. Now, it wasn't anything that I actually had. I just Googled EasyJet Plus discount code and something came up. I'll put it on screen now. And I just put that code in. The website I got it from said it expired 2 years ago, or at least was supposed to expire 2 years ago. But when I put it in, it still worked. And when I look around online, I found quite a few examples of this happening for other people where they've used codes that are supposedly expired, or maybe it's just the same code, they just keep refreshing it. But the code that I put up on screen there, it does seem to work to give a 15% discount. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please do give it a like. And I'd be really interested to know in the comments, is this something that would actually be worth it to you? Do you already have EasyJet Plus? And if not, having watched this, do you think you'd get it? Thanks very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.